Something about watching two people defend a conception date over strawberry lemonade and raw oysters. Nothing about it plays the way it's supposed to play. She's laughing. He's calling the waiter. The chat is running the paternity calculator in real time, and she's answering it between shout-outs to jazzy dimples. That's the room we walked into. And if you've been sitting on this timeline the way we have, hit the button, ring the bell, lock in. This one's got math in it that doesn't want to sit still. Here's the part nobody's stitching together yet. There are two different conception dates floating around this pregnancy, and only one of them was said out loud at the dinner table. We'll get to the second one. But the first thing to understand is that this whole exchange only makes sense once you know what a doctor allegedly wrote down and what Blueface mother reportedly heard on a completely different afternoon. Jamal Porter, who the world calls Blueface, and his current partner Nevaeh Akira sat down for a kickstream date night this week. And midway through the meal, she addressed, on camera, the pregnancy test that had been screenshotted off her window, the December drinking video with a friend named Juliana, and the November period she originally read as proof her body wasn't cooperating. According to a professional's read cited in the couple's earlier ultrasound clip, the conception date lands on December 1st, 2025, with a due date of August 24th, 2026 Hot 97. That's the framework. The dinner is the defense. Start with what she said on the stream, in her own words, talking about the December drinking session she got clocked for, literally a month after. A month after. Trust me, you were there when I was throwing the up. Blueface reply, sitting right next to her. Well, that's my baby in there. She keeps going, I have a video of me and Juliana drinking that same day, and then I was drinking December 12th. How do you pregnant? Flat, almost annoyed, like she's tired of explaining a receipt she thought she'd already filed. Then the November piece. Same conversation, different beat. When I had a period in November, I'm like, I did too many drugs. I can't get pregnant. My uterus fried. Honestly, I thought I did. That's her stated read of her own body at the time. Not a doctor's read. Hers. Filed for the record. The mother's version comes from a different room. Carlisa Saffold, Blueface mother, went on Instagram with what she reportedly heard at a separate skin visit, that the ultrasound she attended pegged conception closer to November 21st or 24th, not December 1st Instagram, Carlisa real. She's not a neutral party in this. Nobody in this story is a neutral party. But the number she gave doesn't match the number the couple gave, and both are being sourced back to a medical professional. And the couple's own number, the one they've been running with publicly, comes from an ultrasound clip circulating this month where the professional on screen states conception at December 1st, 2025, due date August 24th, 2026 Instagram, ultrasound clip, same pregnancy. 2 dates from 2 different visits, at least according to the parties reporting them. Which means somebody is remembering a room wrong, somebody is reading a chart wrong, or somebody heard what they wanted to hear. The chat, meanwhile, is running its own math live. Nevaeh reads the questions off the screen. What month I finally got? I'm pregnant. These people are so mean, babe. Blueface answer to the room, they're for us. Half reassurance, half redirect. He never actually engages the arithmetic. He just shuts the arithmetic down by insisting on the outcome. Line the pieces up. November, a period she publicly acknowledges having. Late November, the mother's alleged conception window. December 1st, the couple's stated conception date, per the professional on their own clip. December 12th, the drinking session she says she has video of. Roughly a month after conception, either version, the throwing up incident Blueface, confirms he witnessed. Then she's on a stream in early July defending all of it at a table with an audience clocking every syllable. The mainstream read is that she just didn't know. Which fair. That happens. Plenty of women don't clock a pregnancy until well after the first miscycle, and Nevaeh is telling on herself in real time about a lifestyle that would make anybody assume the vomit was chemistry, not gestation. That defense holds if the timeline is clean. Here's the part that made me back up and reread the transcript. She says her period was in November. She says she was drinking December 12th. She says she thought she was going to have the baby in January, which only makes sense if she thought conception was much earlier than either date the doctors reportedly gave. Now hold that thought against a due date of August 24th, 2026. A January delivery from that window would put conception somewhere around April 2025. That's not a rounding error. That's a different season. Wait, let me reread that. The time I was supposed to have my baby in January. She might have meant her period was supposed to arrive in January. That's how the sentence reads on a second pass. But the ambiguity is doing work. The whole segment moves fast, half joke, half explanation, and the chat is being asked to accept a moving target. That's what defense looks like when the paper hasn't been laid out cleanly. Now, overlay the mother's number. If the ultrasound Carlisa attended really said November 21st to 24th, then the December 1st date the couple is pushing publicly is off by roughly a week to 10 days. In pregnancy math, that's not nothing. It's the difference between a period that shouldn't have happened and a period that was maybe still consistent with an unmarked early pregnancy. The two dates aren't just numbers. They're two entirely different explanations for the November bleed she publicly puzzled over. I keep coming back to one line. How do you pregnant? She said that as a rhetorical. As a look, the math doesn't work. But she said it in July, months after every one of these dates had already been documented on her own streams and on other people's grid. The rhetorical only works if her audience hasn't already run the calculator. Her audience already ran the calculator per complex. 2 details. That's all. Detail 1 is the oyster question. Small moment, easy to miss. She asks the chat, mid-meal, if she can eat oysters. The waiter answers. Blueface tries to answer. She keeps asking, I want to find out if they're tasty. Look at that on the page, and it's benign, a food question at dinner. Now, look at that inside the frame of a pregnancy where she has publicly acknowledged drinking on December 12th, admitted November drug use as her frame of reference for a fried uterus, and is currently defending a conception window that would have made both of those events risky to the pregnancy. The oyster question isn't about oysters. It's a real-time, on-camera performance of learning prenatal precautions in front of the audience that's been questioning her prenatal precautions. That's a visual receipt. It's texture. It's not proof of anything, I want to be clear about that, but it's a beat that fits a specific reading. Detail 2 is the pregnancy test in the window. She confirms on stream that a viewer clocked a pregnancy test she'd posted, and that it was negative. She says it was negative without a date attached to it. No timestamp. No context on which cycle. In a normal week, that's fine. In this week, with 2 conflicting conception dates already in play, an undated negative test floating in the archive is a variable her defense doesn't account for. Somebody in the comments has to know exactly when that test was posted, because if that timestamp lands between the mother's alleged November 21st to 24th and the couple's stated December 1st, half this timeline gets rewritten by a screenshot. 3 frames running at the same time. Frame 1, the couple's own. It's calm. It's affectionate. It leans on Blueface, saying, well, that's my baby in there, as the emotional close on any question about drinking or dates. His camp is running a frame where the paternity is settled, the pregnancy is healthy, and the audience just needs to be nicer. The strategic choice there is real. Nothing gets litigated when the response to every date question is, we're good, they're for us. That's a frame. That's a choice. Frame 2, the mother's. Carlos's number allegedly moves the conception window earlier by a week or more. Her audience runs with it. Her framing choice is less about accusing anybody specific and more about seeding ambiguity, which is a completely different weapon. Ambiguity keeps her relevant to the story without making her the villain of it. That's a savvy read from somebody who's been in front of a camera as long as she has per XXL. Frame 3, the outlet coverage. Look at how the story got summarized on the aggregators. Multiple outlets ran a version that reduced the whole timeline dispute to confirmed the timeline or cleared the air, passive verbs, no reference to Carlissa's counter, no reference to the December 12th drinking video, no reference to the January delivery quote I heart. That's not accidental. That's the safe frame. The one that stays advertiser-friendly, avoids litigating a private medical timeline in public, and gets picked up on Instagram carousels without triggering a comment war on the outlet's own account, which is a defensible choice for a legacy outlet. It's also the frame that leaves the seam intact. The loudest counter-narrative from the fan side is going to be simple. None of this matters. She didn't know. She's happy. Leave her alone. And honestly, that version deserves respect. She's a young woman on camera being asked to reconstruct a private timeline for an audience of strangers, and the pressure to get it right on the first pass isn't a pressure a lot of us have ever had to hold. I'll grant the whole thing. But the reason the seam still matters isn't about her personal choices. It's about the mother's version and the couple's version being different, and both being publicly attached to a professional. One of those retellings is inaccurate. That's not a fan question, that's a fact question. And nothing in this dinner table stream resolves it. It just performs around it. The mainstream read here is that this is just another chapter in an ongoing streamer couples soap opera, pregnancy personalities, mother-in-law drama, the usual carousel. Fine. That's the surface. Peel one layer down, and something more specific is happening. This isn't the couple defending a pregnancy. This is a couple defending a narrative in real time on a monetized platform in front of an audience that gets to vote with donations and gifted subs every time the story lands smoothly. The performance is the product. The oyster question, the shout-outs to Jessica with the jewels and jazzy dimples, they're for us reassurance. Those aren't interruptions to the timeline defense. Those are the frame the timeline defense is being placed inside of. Follow that read a few more steps. The paper trail, the November period, the December 12th drinking clip, the negative pregnancy test in the window, the two conflicting conception dates from two allegedly medical sources, all of it becomes secondary to the vibe management. The vibe is, we're a couple, we're expecting, we're happy, be kind. Any receipt that undermines the vibe gets absorbed with a laugh and a shout out. Any receipt that supports it gets amplified with an ultrasound clip and a name reveal. Baby Solar Porter, reportedly also being floated as Jonathan Jamal Porter Jr., became a headline event before the conception window was even publicly settled per multiple aggregator posts Instagram, TSRT gender reveals. That's not accidental sequencing. That's stagecraft. And here's where I have to hedge, because I want to be honest about what I actually know versus what I'm reading into. I don't have a copy of any ultrasound chart. I don't have a screenshot of the medical record. The December 1st date and the November 21st to 24th date are both being reported through parties with skin in the game. One side is the couple whose brand depends on the story being clean. The other side is a mother whose leverage in the family narrative depends on the story being messy. Neither one is a neutral witness. So, I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm noting that both versions can't be right, and neither side has released the actual document that would end the debate. What I'm confident about is this: the platform incentives are doing more of the storytelling here than any receipt is. A private medical timeline got dragged into a kickstream because kickstreams are how this couple pays rent. That's not a moral failing on their part, it's a job description. But the second the timeline became content, it stopped being answerable by paper and started being answerable by performance. And performance doesn't reconcile dates. Performance smooths them. Blueface's response the entire meal is worth naming. He never once engages the arithmetic. He calls her his baby. He tells the audience they're for us. He redirects to strawberry lemonade, to the waiter, to the show on the 3rd in La Mirada. That's not evasion, that's discipline. He's been in enough public timelines to know that engaging the math makes the math louder XXL. Krasian custody warning. Refusing to engage is the winning move for him. Personally, it might not be the winning move for the truth. I'll say the harder thing plain. If the mother's number is right, the timeline the couple is telling publicly is off by more than a week, and everything they're doing to shame the mean commenters running the calculator is being run against people who are, in fact, reading the receipts more carefully than the couple is presenting them. If the couple's number is right, the mother is publicly circulating a claim about her son's unborn child that isn't accurate. One of those two things is true. Both are uncomfortable. Only one of them gets addressed on a shout-out stream. Guess which? Watch what happens once the ultrasound receipts stop matching. If the couple releases a clearer image, dated from an office anyone can name, the timeline debate collapses inside a week, and the mother's version gets absorbed into the older drama archive. That's the likely landing. Blueface has been through enough public timelines to know the fastest way to end a math debate is to overwhelm the math with paper. One clean scan, one clean date, one clean caption. He's positioned to do exactly that. And if I had to bet on how this ends, I'd bet on the couple's number holding and the mother's number quietly disappearing from the aggregator feeds by fall. Don't be surprised, though, if the pivot doesn't come from paper, if it comes from a name change. The Solar Porter / Jonathan Jamal Porter Jr. debate is already public, and swapping the baby's public name once he's born is exactly the kind of move that resets a comment section overnight. New name, new photos, new headline, old timeline discourse buried under 400 comments about the name. Wildcard reads like that. By the time the delivery window closes, late August into September, the residue is going to have almost nothing to do with the conception date and everything to do with what this stream established as a template for the couple's next 12 months. Every family milestone from here forward gets processed on camera in front of shout-outs and gifted subs, with the arithmetic answered by affection instead of documents. That's the pattern this dinner just cemented. Once the dust settles on the birth, whichever number was actually on the chart won't matter. The operating model will already be locked. Content first, paper later if at all. The specific prediction I'll stake against the she just didn't know defense. At some point in the next 6 months, an offhand line from either partner on a stream, not a statement, not a press release, an aside, will contradict either the December 1st date or the November period timeline in a way that neither camp can walk back cleanly. That's the pattern with pregnancies litigated in public. The truth doesn't come out in a document. It comes out in an unguarded sentence at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday broadcast. Set a reminder. And here's the last thing worth holding on to. Somewhere in this whole meal, in between the oyster question and the shout-out to Rick City and the joke about the Omni link, Nevaeh said something almost quiet. I never seen a woman get this much hate. Baby, you gotta be doing something wrong. Blueface's response was a throat clear. That's the promise we opened this with. The second date, the mother's number, the one that doesn't sit at the dinner table. Until somebody releases the actual chart, the woman getting the hate and the man clearing his throat are the only two people who fully know which number is real. Everybody else is running a calculator against a stream. That's the receipt. If you've been keeping the screenshots on this one, share where you're landing December 1st, late November, or something the chart hasn't shown yet. The next scan tells us which frame held. Hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell. Next case is already sitting on the desk. Peace.